Maracana Stadium, Portuguese, Estadio do Maracana, Brazilian Portuguese, E Estádio do Maracanã, officially named Estadio Jornalista Mário Filho, Brazilian Portuguese, Estad, I, U Onalista Mário Filho, is an association football stadium in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The stadium is part of a complex that includes an arena known by the name of Maracanazinho, which means, the Little Maracana, in Portuguese. Owned by the Rio de Janeiro state government, the stadium is now managed by the clubs Fluminense and Flamengo. It is located at the Maracana neighborhood, named after the Rio Maracana, a now canalized river in Rio de Janeiro. The stadium was opened in 1950 to host the FIFA World Cup, in which Brazil was beaten 2-1 by Uruguay in the deciding game, in front of a still-standing record attendance of 173,850 spectators, on 16 July 1954. The venue has seen attendances of 150,000 or more at 26 occasions and has seen crowds of more than 100,284 times, but as terraced sections have been replaced with seats over time, and after the renovation for the 2014 FIFA World Cup, its original capacity has been reduced to the current 78,838, but it remains the largest stadium in Brazil and the third largest in South America after Estadio Monumental in Peru. 5. Fluminense and Flamengo still own the all-time club record attendance, with 194.603 spectators supporting its clubs in the world-famous Fla-Flu Derby. The stadium is mainly used for football matches between the major football clubs in Rio de Janeiro, including Fluminense, Flamengo, Botafogo, and Vasco da Gama. It has also hosted a number of concerts and other sporting events. It was the main venue of the 2007 Pan American Games, hosting the football tournament and the opening and closing ceremonies. The Maracana was partially rebuilt in preparation for the 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup, and the 2014 World Cup, for which it hosted several matches, including the final. It also served as the venue for the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2016 Summer Olympics and Paralympics, with the main track and field events taking place at the Estadio Olímpico. The stadium was also chosen to host the 2020 and 2023 Copa Libertadores finals. Name: the stadium was named in 1966 in honor of the recently deceased Mário Filho, a Pernambucan sports journalist, the brother of Nelson Rodrigues, who was a strong vocal supporter of the construction of the Maracana. 6. The stadium's popular name is derived from the Maracana River, whose point of origin is in the jungle-covered hills to the west, crossing various bairros, neighborhoods, of Rio's Zona Norte, North Zone, such as Tijuca and São Cristóvão, via a drainage canal which features sloping sides constructed of concrete. Upon flowing into the Canal do Mangue, it empties into Guanabara Bay. The name Maracana derives from the indigenous Tupi-Guarani word for a type of parrot which inhabited the region. The stadium construction was prior to the formation of the later Maracana neighborhood, that was once part of Tijuca. The stadium of Red Star Belgrade, the Red Star Stadium, is popularly called Maracana in honor of the Brazilian stadium. In March 2021, the Rio de Janeiro state legislature voted to change the venue's name to the Edson Arantes do Nascimento, Rei Pelé Stadium. Edson Arantes do Nascimento was the 82-year-old's full name, while Rei means king in Portuguese. The Rio de Janeiro state governor must approve the name change before it becomes official. 7. History. Construction. After winning the right to host the 1950 FIFA World Cup, the Brazilian government sought to build a new stadium for the tournament. The construction of Maracana was criticized by Carlos Lacerda, then congressman and political enemy of the mayor of the city, General Angelo Mendes de Moraes, for the expense and for the chosen location of the stadium, arguing that it should be built in the West Zone neighborhood of Jacarepaguá. At the time, a tennis stadium stood in the chosen area. Still, it was supported by journalist Mário Filho, and Mendes de Moraes was able to move the project forward. The competition for the design and construction was opened by the municipality of Rio de Janeiro in 1947, with the construction contract awarded to engineer Humberto Manescal, and the architectural contract awarded to 7 Brazilian architects: Michael Feldman, Walter Ramos, Rafael Galvio, Oscar Valdetaro, Orlando Azevedo, Pedro Paulo Bernardes Bastos, and Antonio Dias Carneiro. 8. The first cornerstone was laid at the site of the stadium on 2 August 1948. 9. With the first World Cup game scheduled to be played on June 24, 1950, this left a little under 2 years to finish construction. However, work quickly fell behind schedule, prompting FIFA to send Ottorino Barassi, the head of the Italian FA, who had organized the 1934 World Cup, to help in Rio de Janeiro. A workforce of 1,500 constructed the stadium, with an additional 2,000 working in the final months. Despite the stadium having come into use in 1950, the construction was only fully completed in 1965, opening and 1950 FIFA World Cup. Opening game of the Maracana Stadium, shortly before the 1950 FIFA World Cup. Postage stamp featuring the Maracana, commemorating the 1950 FIFA World Cup. The opening match of the stadium took place on June 16, 1950. Rio de Janeiro All-Stars beat São Paulo All-Stars 3-1. Didi became the player to score the first ever goal at the stadium. While the major part of the stadium was finished, it still looked like a construction site. It lacked toilet facilities and a press box. Brazilian officials claimed it could seat over 200,000 people, while the Guinness Book of World Records estimated it could seat 180,000 and other sources pegged capacity at 155,000. What is beyond dispute is that Maracana overtook Hampden Park as the largest stadium in the world. 10. Despite the stadium's unfinished state, FIFA allowed matches to be played at the venue, and on June 24, 1950, the first World Cup match took place, with 81,000 spectators in attendance. In that first match for which Maracana had been built, Brazil beat Mexico with a final score 4-0, with Ademir becoming the first scorer of a competitive goal at the stadium with his 30th minute strike. Ademir had 2 goals in total, plus 1 each from Baltasar and Jair. The match was refereed by Englishman George Reader. 5 of Brazil's 6 games at the tournament were played at Maracana, the exception being their 2-2 draw with Switzerland in São Paulo. Eventually, Brazil progressed to the final round, facing Uruguay in the match, part of a round-robin final phase, that turned out to be the tournament-deciding match on July 16, 1950. Brazil only needed a draw to finish as champion, but Uruguay won the game 2-1, shocking and silencing the massive crowd. This defeat on home soil instantly became a significant event in Brazilian history, being known popularly as the Maracanazo. The official attendance of the final game was 199,854, with the actual attendance estimated to be about 210,000, 311. In any case, it was the largest crowd ever to see a football game, a record that is highly unlikely to be threatened in an era when most international matches are played in all-seater stadiums. At the time of the World Cup, the stadium was mostly grandstands with no individual seats. Stadium completion and post-World Cup years. Original configuration of the Maracana from 1950 to 2010, featuring a 2-tier bowl and solid-color seating. Left, exterior view, 2009, right, interior view looking towards the southern end, 2007. Since the World Cup in 1950, Maracana Stadium has mainly been used for club games involving 4 major football clubs in Rio: Vasco, Botafogo, Flamengo and Fluminense. The stadium has also hosted numerous domestic football cup finals, most notably the Copa do Brasil and the Campeonato Carioca. On March 21, 1954, a new official attendance record was set in the game between Brazil and Paraguay, after 183,513 spectators entered the stadium with a ticket and 194,603, 177,656 in Fla-Flu, 1963. In 1963, stadium authorities replaced the square goal posts with round ones, but it was still 2 years before the stadium would be fully completed. In 1965, 17 years after construction began, the stadium was finally finished. In September 1966, upon the death of Mario Rodrigues Filho, the Brazilian journalist, columnist, sports figure, and prominent campaigner who was largely responsible for the stadium originally being built, the administrators of the stadium renamed the stadium after him, Estadio Jornalista Mario Rodrigues Filho. However, the nickname of Maracana has continued to be used as the common referent. In 1969, Pelé scored the 1,000th goal of his career at Maracana, against CR Vasco da Gama in front of 65,157 spectators, 12. In 1989, the stadium hosted the games of the final round of the Copa America. In the same year, Zico scored his final goal for Flamengo at the Maracana, taking his goal tally at the stadium to 333, a record that still stood as of 2021. An upper stand in the stadium collapsed on July 19, 1992, in the second game of the finals of 1992 Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A, between Botafogo and Flamengo, leading to the death of 3 spectators and injuring 50 others. 13. Following the disaster, the stadium's capacity was greatly reduced as it was converted to an all-seater stadium in the late 1990s. Meanwhile, the ground was classified as a national landmark in 1998, meaning that it could not be demolished. Citation needed. The stadium hosted the first-ever FIFA Club World Cup final match between CR Vasco da Gama and Corinthians Paulista, which Corinthians won on penalties. 21st century, renovations, and 2014 FIFA World Cup. Panorama from inside the stadium during the closing ceremony of the 2014 FIFA World Cup. Following its 50th anniversary in 2000, the stadium underwent